want to thank you for your invitation, comrades, and I want to welcome you on the road to Greece. In the last few weeks, the sections of the CWI in many countries have held numerous public meetings inviting comrades from different countries to speak about their experiences, to exchange views, to answer the lies and the slanders of the bourgeois against the workers in every country, and above all, to convey the message of class solidarity, of common struggle, and of internationalism, which is more vital today than has ever been before. Because the attack we are facing is not a national one. The CWI said it from the beginning. The attack on the Greek society, on the Greek workers, is not a Greek tragedy. It's a Greek tragedy, it's an Irish tragedy, it's an Italian one, it's a British one. It's an attack against every one of us. And the message of internationalism is crucial today. And one question that can be raised in the minds of every worker, not only of our comrades, is why the CWI, with its limited resources, is developing all this activity to bring together these experiences and draw the conclusions, but the mass parties of the left are not doing it. And of course, the trade union leaderships are not doing it. The attack is massive. As previous speakers explained, the attack corresponds to the depth of the crisis. It's the deepest crisis in living memory. And it's the greatest attacks in living memory. They are not only after wages. They don't want to smash, they don't want just to smash wages and to smash pensions and to destroy the public sector, whatever is left of it. It's not just mass sackings. Unemployment is 20% in Spain, officially. And the real unemployment in Greece is 20%. Never mind the 10% official figures that they give. They want to go further than that. They want to attack the rights to strike. They want to attack the rights to get unionized. They want to attack basic democratic rights. I don't know how many of you know that in the agreement of the Greek government with the IMF and the EU and the European Central Bank, there is a clause which says that during all this decade, when Greece will be supervised by the EU, the European Commission, that's Mr. Barroso and the clique around him, will decide on the policies to be followed in Greece, which means they will decide on wages, they will decide on pensions, they will decide on public services, etc., etc. And the Greek Parliament, this rotten, ridiculous, useless Greek Parliament, will not even discuss it. Will not even be asked, never mind to vote on it. They don't keep even the pretenses. This is a dictatorship of the European Commission, and they want to go even further. What has been discussed in the European Commission these days is that the European Commission will decide which member state of the European Union falls out of line, and they will fine it. They will put fines on the member states. And the question is, if they are going to decide on everything, and if they are going to decide on the policies to be followed in every country, then what's the point of elections? What's the point of governments? What's the point of electing parliaments, etc.? What I mean to say is that they don't keep the pretenses. They go over the top in their attempt to impose politics and to smash the attempts of the working class to fight back. But of course they will fail. Because they must remember, they should know, that the working class built its organizations, trade union organizations and political organizations, in conditions which were 1,000 times worse than the present conditions. And when the working class was much, much weaker than it is today. They may have the upper hand today because they have a plan and they know how to apply it. But they are creating entirely new conditions in one country after another. And the fact that they have to resort to such means to put their policies through is only a reflection of how rotten their system is, of the fact that they are not able to give anything to society anymore. So they have to resort to these methods. They are preparing on a long-term basis. On a long-term basis, I want to stress this. But they are preparing one powder house after another. They are preparing immense social upheavals, much, much bigger than what we have seen in Greece recently. They will force the working class in every country to bring out, to remember the most heroic traditions in its history, because the working class will fight. There is no question about that. The depth of the attack in Greece is such that the working class is still not fully realized, partly stunned. The full effects of it have not been felt yet. And what is worse is that because their policies, even on a bourgeois basis, are leading to a blind alley, the first wave of attack will be followed by a second wave of attack. And the second wave of attack will be followed by a third wave of attack. This is the logic of the policies that they are following. But it's not just the attack. To the Greek working class, the position of the European Union in relation to the Greek crisis was a revelation. Because the European Union was supposed to be the family in which every member state supports every other member state. And then suddenly the Greek workers saw the German Chancellor Merkel and Stoibel, the finance minister, the British press, the German press, etc., go on a slanderous attack, accusing the Greek workers of being lazy, of living beyond their means, of living luxurious lives, and things like that. And this really shocked people, because there is nothing in reality which has any relation to this. Reality is so much different. This is what I mean to say. How can you accuse a working class in which 21% of the working class, of the labor force, they live on the basic wage, which is 650 euros, of living beyond their means? The new generation of Greek workers are known as the generation of 700 euros, which is the formal wage that they are supposed to get if they have full-time works, which they never have. The new generation of workers live on 400 to 500 euros, even if they have 3 university degrees. That's the market in Greece. This has been the case for the whole of the last decade. 65% of pensioners, they live on less than 600 euros a month. These are the facts. Collective agreements have now been smashed. They are not recognized. Individual enterprises can employ workers on personal contracts. Daily contracts are becoming the norm. Daily contracts. You enter the company in the morning, you sign the contract, it lasts 24 hours, and you have to sign it again on the next day. This is a situation of a working class which is so suppressed, and they say that it lives beyond their means. But of course this meant conclusions for the Greek working class. Also, this massacre against the living standards and against the rights of the Greek worker comes after 25 years of attack after attack. Since 1985, these 25 complete years, when austerity policies began to be applied in the name of raising the competitiveness of Greek economy. And then because Greece had to enter the European Union, new austerity packages. And then after this, Greece had to enter the Eurozone, new sacrifices to be made. And then it was the Olympic Games, new sacrifices had to be made. And then it was the catastrophe of the Olympic Games, because financially it was a catastrophe. The Greek workers had to pay. 25 years of continuous pressure on wages and rights to arrive at this situation when there is this massacre of rights. But during all this time that the Greek workers were oppressed, there was handout after handout given out to the bankers and to the ship owners and to the industrialists in the form of tax reductions, massive tax reductions, in the form of special donations, special reliefs, special incentives. And this is how they created the deficits. It was not an accidental factor. It was not something that came out of the blue. It was a conscious policy to use state funding to give to the Greek capitalists in order to face their competitors and in order to expand into the Balkans, and then forcing the Greek working class to pay. And then on top of all this, 78 billion euros given to save the banks, as it happened in most other countries with similar figures. So the Greek workers are very angry. 91% in a recent poll, when they were asked, how do you feel? Their response was, I am angry. 91%. 59%, 6 out of 10 people, when asked, what party do you support? Who do you think can provide the solution? Responded by saying, nobody. 80% of the population say that they expect in the next period a social explosion in the Greek society. 80%, 80. And 51% say that if there is such a social explosion, they will take part in it. This is the problem. This is what they are claiming. And it's not just Greece. It's France, it's Ireland, it's Portugal, it's Spain, it's Britain. This is the kind of powerhouses they are creating, though it may take time before these processes come into the surface. And the question is, if there is such anger, if there are so many strikes in Greece, if there have been 6 general strikes, plus, and in addition to this, 3 extra general strikes by the public sector, if between May and July there was not one single day in Athens when there were no demos and strikes, how is it that they can put the policies through? And the reason is the leadership of the unions. They are an obstacle because they are not interested in planning the strikes. They are only responding under the pressure from below. They call general strikes in order to let steam off, and with the first opportunity, they say we had enough. Last September, the president of the TUC spoke to the international mass media. He didn't even say to his colleagues in Greece that we had enough strikes, there is no point in having more strikes, sending a message of disappointment to the Greek working class. But as a result of this, he cannot emerge on the streets. Even when there is a demo which is called by the TUC, he cannot be there. Even if he tries to speak to a demo, he is put down. He is not allowed to speak. Just like the ministers, the Greek ministers who until very recently had the tradition of walking around in the neighborhoods of Athens and going to the tavernas to sit and mix with the people, they cannot appear. They are spat at. They are immediately encircled and they are called thieves, robbers, get out. This is the most popular slogan. Every time outside parliament, thieves and robbers and liars. This is the slogans to the parliament. But if the trade union leaders are an obstacle in the development of the struggles in a planned way, so as to overturn this massive attack, the real tragedy is the state of the left parties. Because in these conditions, the working class needs the left, needs its parties, political parties, more than ever. And when they should be growing, when they should be giving a lead, when they should be providing perspective, they are in crisis. In a recent public meeting we had in Salonika, one old female comrade spoke who belonged to the left from the 70s. She said, the crisis of the left is deeper than the crisis of the system and of the economic crisis. 2 years ago, the common percentage support of the two parties of the left, two main parties of the left in Greece, was between 25 and 30%, and today is less than half. So when it's critical for the movement, for the mass movement, when it needs the parties of the left, they go in crisis because they have no answer to the crisis, to the economic crisis. They have tried to move to the left, both of them, the Communist Party and Syriza or Synaspismos. They both speak of socialism on paper, but it's socialism in some distant day, some future, somehow, by some other generation, not ours. That's the main thing. They respond to the attacks that the working classes face with general phrases again. We must resist, we must rebel, we must revolt, we must overturn. Fine, but how? This idea of how the struggle should develop, on what political demands, in other words, on what program, and what forms of struggle it should develop, is completely absent from the parties of the left. And this is the root of their crisis. None of the mass parties of the left raises the question of the cancellation of the debt. The Greek left was the first internationally to campaign for the cancellation of the debt of the other countries, the poor countries. When it comes into Greece, the problem, they keep quiet about it. They describe our position as extremist, because if it is accepted, we will be attacked by the markets. We will be attacked by the markets. It's a real joke. As if what we have already experienced can be worse. None of the parties of the left has the position of the nationalization of the banks, of these parasites who are responsible for the crisis, and they continue to make profits at the time that this austerity is going through. And of course, none of them raises the question of nationalizing the commanding heights, workers' control, workers' management, to lay the basis for socialism and for the overturn of capitalism and the building of the socialist society. But these demands today, the struggle for socialism today, is not just a good idea. It's a must. It's a necessity. It's the only way that we can safeguard the most basic of our rights and the right to be able to have a living wage. And of course, none of the parties of the left raises the kind of plan of struggle that is required. Because it's not sufficient to have one general strike every month. You need a plan of general strikes. The governments, whatever government, they must feel that they will be overturned. That's the only conditions in which they can retreat. You need a plan of developing 24-hour strikes to 48-hour strikes to 3-day general strikes, repeated 3-day general strikes, combined with strikes of sectors and federations, which will cause a paralysis of the economy and of the state. This is the only way to win. And this is not what the parties of the left are proposing, but what a vindication of the ideas of the CWR. Because we raised this from the beginning of the year, immediately after the crisis became known. What a vindication of our ideas. When workers on the street were saying, what's the point of having one 24-hour general strikes? If there's going to be a serious struggle, we should go for 1 week, we should go for 1 month. And this is simple logic. If you are losing three monthly wages every year as a result of the attacks, because this is what's happening, then it is worth losing 1 month's wages in strike if you have a good chance to... And what a vindication of our ideas when not a single political party in Greece raises the question of the cancellation of the refusal to pay the debt and to nationalize the banks. When the polls came out and 31% of the population are in favor of refusing to pay the debt, 1 in 3, and 48% are in favor of nationalizing the banks, 1 in 2. Because of time, and I finish with this, comrades. They have achieved in one thing. They have created a whole new generation which has nothing, has no future, has no perspective, has nothing to lose. They have created a whole new generation which has one target, one vision, one dream, to revenge. And our task, the task of the CWR, because we are the only ones who have the ideas, we are the only ones with the correct proposals in relation to how the left should be built. We have one task: to make these visions come true, to overthrow this rotten, stinking corpse which is called capitalism, to get rid of this parasite that is destroying the lives of the working people. To make them pay.